Hi, William. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on your show. I'm
Okay.
so impressed with your career.
Well, thank you very much. I'm impressed with your work as well. And we're going to get to all those 9 books that you've written for your grandson and other children as well. Very, very cool stuff. Before we continue, though, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you come from, and how you got to write these books?
Okay, well, first of all, the books were never written to be a commercial enterprise, and I was never going to write more than one book. Um, I have two major careers, one in education. Um, I have an undergraduate degree from Bloomsburg University in Pennsylvania and a master's and doctorate in educational administration from Temple University. And in my 15-year educational career, um, uh, two of the really important things is I was assigned to help start up and implement two brand new community colleges, one in New Jersey and one in New York City. And so after about 15 years and getting tired of the politics of education, I left education and started up a new career in the field of income tax preparation and client representation before the IRS. I was very active, started with nothing, and I joined a national organization over a period of time. They made me chairman of the Federal Tax Committee for 10 years. I was very active in Washington, testified before Congress. I'm bragging now. Should I keep bragging? I don't know what to. I was named Accountant of the Year, and I served on the Commissioner's Advisory Group for 2 years, and I was admitted, one of about 200 people in the last 70 years, to the United States Tax Court as a non-attorney. So I was very active, and I had a grandson that he lived pretty far away, and I didn't get a lot of chance to see him. And I wanted to figure out, some people consider me creative. I wanted to figure out what could I do that would be lasting for him to remember his grandfather. So I decided to write a book where he would dream and I would go into his dream and we would do something. And what I came up with, we would take a dream trip through the solar system and visit every planet. And it was the only book I was ever going to write, but it was something I knew would last. And lo and behold, if you want to see here, here's the book with his picture on the cover. He was 7 years old, and the book was about the solar system. And I took pictures off of the internet, and I felt pretty good about it. So the book was sitting on my desk one day, and I was not retired yet. This was a while ago. I'm 84. I just retired 2 years ago, and so this book was written 10. My grandson was 7 years old, and I had the book sitting on my desk. And my client said to me, "What is that?" I said, "Oh, I told you what I had done," and showed him the book. He said, "Well, could I see it?" And so he started thumbing through it. He said, "You know, Bill, I'm leaving CBS and I'm starting up a new company for self-published authors. And this is very publishable." Well, of course, you and I both know that now I'm a client of his if I do this because it's self-published. But I went along with him, and he introduced me to a fantastic company called Fireman Creative. And Paul Fireman is the president, and they're a design team. And we sent him the book, and he loved it. And they did fantastic artwork, and people loved it. As a matter of fact, adults who read it said, Bill, there's stuff in here I never knew myself. It was written for a 7-year-older. Anyway, so the book came out, and people really loved it. I mean, I'm not saying I had big sales. The only reason I had sales of any kind is because I had a couple hundred clients. The books were sitting on my desk. Well, you know, they had to spend $10 to buy the book,
Sure.
which many of them did. So the book was popular, and the teachers loved it because they could put it in their lessons plan. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not really an author. Author has to write more than one book. Anybody could write one book. Let me write a second book. And at the time, I was reading about George Washington. A new book had come out, and Adams, and it was about the Declaration of Independence. And so what we decided to do was have a dream trip to Philadelphia and go into the meeting of Independence Hall and meet with the people who were debating whether or not to sign the independence. Now, there's one little secret I'm going to tell you. On the way in, there's a little black boy, and he's sitting outside the building, caring for a horse of one of the Southern members. And he was crying. And Ricky said, oh, why are you crying? And he said, because the law doesn't let me go to school. And if I would go to school, at least I'd be free in my mind. And Ricky said, well, gee, where I come from, everybody's free. And well, look, I'll see you when I come out, but let me sing you a song. And he loved the guitar, and in fact, I'm looking at your guitar. He's a child prodigy on the guitar even now. And so he sang a song, and then left him, and the little black boy thanked him for treating him like a human being. And the reason I sneaked that in there is because the Declaration of Independence, as you know, talks about human beings being free. Yeah. And the black boy wasn't free. So this gave teachers an opportunity to discuss this, and then how it grew to the Civil War, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So I kind of sneaked that in. And then we went inside, and they met John Adams, and John Adams said, well, what are you doing here? You can't come in here. All the blinds are drawn, and it was hot because there's no air conditioning. He said, well, this is my dream. You're in my dream. I can go anywhere I want. And so he let him come in, and he participated in the discussion of why or why not should the Declaration of Independence be signed. And then I'll let you guys read about that. But it's it comes from real history. Yeah. So when they were finished, John Adams said to Ricky, would you like to say something before you go? And Ricky said, I'm 8 years old. I can't give a speech, but I can sing a song my PopPop taught me. And so he took out his guitar, and he sang, how many roads must a man walk down, which is kind of a written later, but a perfect song for freedom. And that's how that story ended, and they went home.
Oh,
And people loved it. And teachers loved it because they could put it into the lesson plan and expand it, any way they wanted to. And Ricky loved it because he was a hero. I kind of had three things I wanted to do.
yeah.
I wanted to show my grandson that his grandfather loved him.
Mm.
And then I wanted to do something that would last and not just disappear. And when you write about history, it goes on forever.
Yeah.
And um, and so the story of Ricky's grandfather loved him and real history, and then the idea I wanted to make a contribution to our society that was positive. We live in such a negative situation. I wanted to make a positive contribution to it. And also that's why I had it translated into Spanish, and hopefully the Spanish kids would learn about America because they were going to come here and live here and be Americans. And I had just done that, so I don't know what the success is going to be. So anyway, now I'm an author. I wrote 2 books, for
There you
heaven's
go.
sake.
There you go.
I'm a big shot.
Yeah.
And so people said, you should try to do more. So at the time, I was very interested in Egypt and had read a lot of books about Egypt. And I figured, all right, I'll do a dream trip about Egypt. And here now I'm trying to pull something out of Egypt that young kids would enjoy, and it would be focused. And I'm reading here, and I read a lot of books, did a lot of research. Egypt's got a 6,000-year history.
Longest empire in the world, I understand.
Yeah, and I want to do something in a couple of days. What am I going to? Where am I going to pull something out of this? And lo and behold, as I'm going through this, I realized I didn't have to do all this reading. There's Tutankhamun. He's Ricky's age. It's
Yeah,
perfect, and everybody knows him.
absolutely.
So they arrive in their dream trip on dream horses. By the way, Nefertiti, I sneaked her in because she's so beautiful. And Ricky's sister wife said, "Oh, Ricky's going to be so glad to see you because he can't find his favorite cat."
That's right. Yeah.
And as you know, cats were very popular in
They love
ancient
their
Egypt.
cats. They love their cats. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll show you.
Sure. Let's take a look. That looks very Egyptian.
This is an actual copy of an Egyptian cat from that period. His name is Bastet. Anyway, so now I have a way of taking Ricky all over Egypt looking for the cat. Yeah, they could go down the Nile River. They could go to see where pharaohs were buried, etc., etc. Well, in the end, they didn't find the cat, and Ricky was really upset. And Tutankhamun said, "Don't worry, Ricky. You really did your best, and we'll continue to find." So I'm going to take you back to your stable where your dream horses are, and we'll say goodbye. So they go back to the dream stable where the horses are, And who was there? Bastet the cat. And oh, they were so excited. But not only was Bastet there, but she had kittens. How do you do better than that to
That's
get kids
wonderful.
interested in the
That's
story?
wonderful. It sounds to me, William, that you got two levels you're writing on. One is this story that children could easily follow because they're interesting to children, but you're also weaving in a lot of history that adults could, when they're reading it to their child or reading it with their child, as you mentioned earlier, say, "Wow, I didn't know that." That brings to mind historical accounts that many of us, well, not me because I love history, but a lot of people don't really care for it. And so you're actually turning some adults onto this.
And the other part that I was hoping that the kids would be so interested in the story that they would want to go further. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But anyway, that was my hope. So anyway, the next story from the ancient world was ancient Greece, and Ricky and PopPop traveled to ancient Greece, and they met Aristotle and Alexander the Great. Aristotle was his teacher, and that period allowed me to introduce the concept of the Olympics, because everybody knows the Olympics came from Greece.
Right.
And to make the story a little interesting, Aristotle had a horse that was in a race, and he asked Ricky if he would ride his horse. Of course, Ricky said yes, and guess who won?
Ricky.
What do you think?
Ricky, of course.
He's a hero. I have to make
Yeah.
this kid a hero. One of the things, as you know, it's really hard being a kid, and if you can make them feel good about themselves,
Yeah.
it really helps their self-confidence.
Yeah.
And this is what I try to do in every story. So anyway, after the race and some work that Aristotle had to do, they met Alexander the Great, who was fairly young at the time. And Alexander the Great had one thing that he couldn't do. He had a lyre, and he couldn't figure out how to play it.
Right.
And Ricky, who had a guitar, not the same as a lyre, but it did have strings.
Yep.
And he asked Alexander the Great if he'd like it to teach him how to play it. And lo and behold, Ricky became a hero, and he taught him how to play the lyre.
Wow.
Which was, and there's a lot of history in that, by the way, because Alexander the Great loved his lyre, and I presume he learned it. So anyway, the last part of that little 3-book series is the one that knocked me out the most. It was about ancient Rome, and we're concentrating on Julius Caesar. Now, John, when you and I think of Caesar, we think of Cleopatra, we think of him in his 50s, et tu, Brutus, when he was killed.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
This is our mindset.
Yeah, that's the first.
Well, in the readings, I discovered that when Caesar was 16 years old, his father died. And when he was 17, he was made head of the family. And the head of Rome at the time gave Caesar a big job. He was the head priest for Jupiter, true story, and had him marry his daughter. His daughter was only 13, but what are you going to do? Yeah. And I was really shocked.
Yeah.
that had so much history way before history.
I didn't know.
And what happened was um, a new guy took over by the name of Sulla, and he got rid of most of the people who were in charge, and and Ricky was going to be killed along with everybody else. But
Mm,
he changed his mind. He called Ricky into his office, if they had an office, and he said, "Look, I'm going to save your life." No, I'm telling you, John, this knocked me out because it's a true story of something that was so far beyond us. He said, "I'm taking your job away, and I want you to divorce your wife." Caesar, 17, 18 years old, he looks at this guy in the eye and he says, "I'm not divorcing my wife." And he had to escape into the mountains. This is all true.
mhm.
And he moved around the mountains to stay out of trouble, to save his life. He was very sick. He even had malaria. And you'll see in the drawing of the book, is kind of have a greenish pale. So when PopPop and Ricky arrived, they met his mother, and his mother explained what was going on, told him that he was in the mountains, didn't know exactly where he was. So of course it's a dream. Ricky and PopPop found Julius, sick as a dog. "What can we do for you? We want to save your life." And here's where I introduce girls and women as heroes.
Okay, good.
He said there, there's a group of women called Vestals. They're
Mm.
actually Vestal virgins, but
Well, yeah,
age of 8 or 9,
yeah, Vestal's good enough.
you'll
Yeah,
forgive me if I don't use the
sure,
word
sure, of course.
virgin. So these Vestal virgins, they're it's a wonderful history, John. They lasted hundreds of years. They were divided into 3 age groups. Very, very young. They were trained. Their their job was to, which I never knew, was to keep the light of Rome lit 24/7. They were very powerful, and the heads of state generally listened to their advice.
Okay.
So Ricky's Julius Caesar's mother introduced PopPop and Ricky uh, to the women. And there's another little shtick I added in that Ricky had trouble speaking before a class, and he was scared to talk to these women because of that problem. And they calmed him down, and he felt pretty good. And so he told the story, and lo and behold, they went to Sulla, and they saved Julius Caesar's life, who left Rome, lived elsewhere for a while, and became what you and I know as one of the greatest military heroes in history.
Yeah.
And uh, and so Ricky was a hero because he saved his life. And that was the 3 books I put together.
I noticed that there's one that covers Egypt, Greece, and Rome, and then you have separate books, one for Egypt, one for Greece, and one for Rome.
And in each book, at the back of each book, there's special learning techniques,
Oh, really?
such as the alphabet, hieroglyphics, and there are all kinds of things that can be used in the classroom.
That's great.
This the next to the last book I wrote was a science fiction. It was written in the future. Can't have everything in the past, so let's go to the future. And we went to the future, and it was a story about people. The population was building cities under the sea, and it's kind of a cute story, and people like that one. And then the last one was a dream trip to ancient China, and that featured Marco Polo. Now, everybody knows the name of Marco Polo for 100 reasons, but what people don't realize is the real story of Marco Polo, that his father and his uncle came back from China, because they were there for a while. They came back, took Ricky back with them. He was 17 years old, and they met and stayed with the famous Kublai Khan, who's the great grandson of the Aga Khan, and he was there for 17 years, and he got homesick, and he wanted to go home, but the Kublai Khan loved him so much, and he was so helpful to him that he wouldn't let him go. So when Ricky and PopPop arrived, they discovered this. And one of the things that they learned, true story, the Kublai Khan's nephew was the head of Persia. His wife died, and one of his other wives said she wants him to remarry somebody in the family. So when Ricky arrived to meet with the Kublai Khan, the Kublai Khan had agreed to allow the princess to go back to the area and get married to his nephew. And Ricky said, "How are you sending her back?" And he said, Kublai Khan said, "Well, we're going to go over land." And Ricky said, "Your people will have a very hard time going over land. Weather's bad, people are fighting, very dangerous. But we know how to use ships." And the king said, Kublai Khan said, "Okay." And Ricky and his family took her back to that area, and they went back to Venice.
Yeah.
You know, there is something, this just between you and me. Much later, I wish I had put in the book. I'm just going to share this with you because you love history.
Mm-hmm.
Kublai Khan, he by boat raided Japan twice, and the sea overwhelmed them, and they never made it.
Mm.
The word for the sea was kamikaze.
Oh, you mean in Japanese?
Yeah, kamikaze.
I didn't know that.
Because they destroyed the boat, yeah. And this is the kamikaze that you and I have learned about from the Second World War. Yeah. I mean, I wish I had put that in there, but the teachers can do that.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, so there's your books.
Wow, brilliant. I mean, I'm fascinated with it.
Do you know how good you make me feel? I mean, you're very sincere. I can feel your sincerity. It makes me feel good. I'm retired. One of the things about retiring that I discovered, for 40 years, I had a practice of people with generations. It's worldwide. And my clients were more than clients. They weren't numbers on a piece of paper. And, and there was a tremendous amount of affection.
Yeah.
And I lost that. I didn't miss the stress, tremendous amount of stress in that field. But I did miss that part of it.
Yeah.
And then when I have a reaction like this, you make me feel good. Thank you.
Well, thank you, because this is one of the reasons I do it, is to meet nice people like yourself, and to know that even though it's a two-dimensional world we're in right now, just on a computer screen, I really feel I'm with you there. And I would love to just sit down and spend an afternoon with you and listen to all your stories and
Yeah.
books.
I have a feeling you and I would have been great friends if we'd known each other a couple of years ago.
And I feel that way. I love doing what I'm doing here for that reason.
Yeah. It shows.
Because I also miss those moments. A lot of stress in television. They think they're saving lives, but you know, relative stress. But when I was working intimately with someone, my story editor, we would have some really warm times. And you can't replace that. That just comes with the territory.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you seem very relaxed.
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't have a boss, so that's good. I'm not under any pressure, and I like that. I like that. I'm happily married. We've got 2 little dogs, and fenced-in backyard, and I grow my own vegetables and chop my own wood. Yeah.
Oh, really?
What more can I ask for? Your illustrations, which I can only see the cover of your books, if you have a chance to open one up and show us some of your illustrations and talk about who you partnered up with and how that relationship came about, that would be cool.
As you can see, you got pyramids, and Ricky and PopPop are on a chariot. These are the pictures of PopPop and Ricky and Tutankhamun and his wife. The dress is amazing. Colonial America. We wanted to show how people dress. Pretty, and it's based on a lot of research.
I still wear woolen stockings. I got one. I got a pair on right now.
This is Independence Hall. It pretty much looks like that. And that's where they're entering. There's a little black boy there.
Nice. William, do you have anything else you want to tell the viewing audience? They'll be watching this, and maybe they want to hear some final words from you before we bid farewell to each other.
Well, just remember that the series of books are written on a foundation of love. And I want them to feel that way when they read them to their children and to themselves.
That's wonderful. I love what you're doing, and I really, really wish you the best.
Thank you.
And Ricky as well, who must be older by now, right?
He just graduated from college. Can you believe it?
Yeah. And I'm sure he's very proud of you.
He's excited because he realizes that these will carry on to his family as he gets older.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm very moved by this.
Great meeting you, John. It really is.
It was really nice meeting you too.
And nice to know people like you are around.
Okay. The same goes for you, sir. You take care of yourself, and all the best to you and your extended family. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. And before you go, if you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and don't forget to ring that bell for future notifications. You can even leave a comment. All of that really helps in recommending this channel to a larger audience. And if you are an author, I would love to speak with you about your book. Until next time, keep on writing and be kind to one another.